Hey guys, it is 9 p.m. my time, 9:13 p.m. so 12:13 Central Standard Time, and as promised, I am coming back on you guys to talk about some more travel tips. I apologize in advance for not being outside and giving you guys a little ambiance from outside, and I was going to be on my balcony, but the bugs was for real tonight, so we brought it indoors. We brought it indoors tonight. I got tired of fighting. So they were winning. They're in their element. I guess this is when they come out, and fine, they can have it. So you guys, I wanted to do episode 2, a follow-up from the travel tips episode 1 that I did on December 19th, about a week ago. And we talked about some good stuff. If you guys don't remember, or if you didn't see it, just do a search on my page for travel tips, and then the live video will pop up. But today I got some fantastic stuff for you, but I want to start off by supporting and sharing a friend's business. I'm wearing a couple of the pieces that I got from her. What month is this? In December. So anyway, this is from Sparkled Dazzle Collection. Make sure you guys can see it. I got the Amethyst stone. If you guys already know me, you know I love stones. And each one has a different energy. So there's certain ones that I love specifically, like citrine. This is another piece that I got from Sparkled Dazzle Collective, and my friend's name is April Lynn, and she is fantastic. I normally don't wear anything this big, and so I won't normally just wear this out and about, so it has to be like a special occasion, but I wanted to wear it to show you guys how nicely these pieces are put together. So I wanted to show that this is a citrine ring, and then of course this amethyst stone and pendant. Now I messed up the chain that came with it because I got in a swimming pool. I got in chlorine. I wore this on my birthday because y'all know, if you don't already know, you know purple is my color. And anyway, I was in swimming pools and in chlorine and stuff, and so I messed up the chain, and I don't have one of those cleaning cloths. Maybe I do. Anyway, I have to check to see if I have a cleaning cloth. So that's the only reason it doesn't show the glistening copper. But it comes, you can buy them with the chains or without. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I also have an ankle bracelet on, but I'm not going to throw my leg up so y'all can see that. So anyway, support if you guys can. She is based out of Chicago, but she's in and around. I met her in Mexico in Tulum, and like I said, I love these pieces. As you guys can see, this is actually a pretty big stone. So anyway, I just want to support a friend of mine. So anyway, let's get on to our travel tips for the day. So the header for today's live is why I only book one-way flights. Number one, because I be like trying not to come back. Number one, to keep it real. Honestly, I be like, ooh, if they let me stay, which I found out in Mexico, technically 6 months is what our passport allows for us to stay in Mexico. Any place in Mexico for the most part. So I want to talk about that too. I'm going to talk about a little bit about my travel. I'm going to answer some of you guys' questions that you had from before when you guys posted on a post that I put on my page, and talk about a couple different things. Normalizing my new normal, and thinking like a millionaire and not a spendanaire. Okay, and in these times, it's important that we kind of make some adjustments in our lives. if you need to make those adjustments, especially if you want to do different things. Anytime we want to do something a little different from the norm, we got to make an adjustment. Even if, we can easily like roll into the next phase, anytime we're changing something, we have to adjust. So we're going to just talk about some adjustments in terms of, and I think I do this every video, is talk about expenditures, talk about spending habits, talk about expenses, things that we can just start thinking about, things that you can and cannot do with or without, just to get your brain kind of flowing, as you're trying to decide what it is that you want to do. If you want to live this kind of on the road lifestyle, or even if you want it to be one-offs or 2 times a year or whatever the case may be. Hey, you guys, as you guys are joining, good afternoon. I think your time. Check in, give me some thumbs up. Let me know that you're there. Hey, Mark. Hey, Daryl. Let me know that you're there. I can see more numbers than I can see people are watching. So let me know where you're checking in from. That would be really awesome. I want to know who's listening in from where. You guys, right now I am in Tanzania. I'm in Zanzibar. So I'm on the island. Hold on, where my little map at? Where's my little map so I can show y'all right quick? There it is. So I'm in Africa, which is a continent. And I just say that because so often, and when I talk about Mexico, I'm going to kind of stress this as well. But so often we think of Africa as a country because of the way that the terminology that we use, right? And I think that comes from media. We know why. Africa is the largest continent. I believe it's larger than China. I did ask somebody over here if that was the case, because you know how the globe and the maps don't show proportionally. Up until like the last couple of years, they were showing like the United States was actually bigger than the continent of Africa, and that is not accurate at all. Anyway, so I am on this island, which is referred to as Unguja, which is Zanzibar. It's like this part here, and then this is another island, and there's all these little islands around Zanzibar that you can go to. And if you're looking at show y'all that. Currently, I am right up here where this red dot is. When I first got here, I started over here, then we went here, and now we're here, and I'm gonna finish. Nope. Yeah, I'm gonna finish over here before I head over to the mainland. So in any case, if you're looking at a real map, hey Bridget from Texas, hey Tanya, Virginia Beach. All right, we got Virginia Beach in the building, and Texas. I know I got some Chicago folks on. Tell me where you guys are checking in from. So in any case, when you're looking at the map and you're looking at Africa, the continent of Africa, Zanzibar is on the east coast. So it is, when you're looking at the map, Zanzibar look like a speck. It looks like it's about the size of, not the size, but on the map it looks like a speck, like seashells or something like that. Like it's much smaller than Madagascar, I think, because on a map Madagascar looks bigger, just from being able to see it, from point A to point B or whatever. But when it is huge, like this island is huge, so I don't want to knock it, because it's like one of those things you got to go there to actually see. Like it's really big. There's tons of people here, and each place has its own uniqueness, and so I'm going to talk about that too a little bit, maybe today. But anyway, I wanted to point that out because this is where I am right now. So I want to let you guys know why I am 9 hours ahead of you, and how this feeds into why I only book one-way flights. So my trip here, as you guys recall from the last episode, was free. So I use credit card points to make this trip to Africa. So I did not spend a dime to actually fly here from Dallas. So Dallas directly to Zanzibar. I was going to fly to Dar es Salaam and then take the ferry over, but it ended up being more movement than I needed it to be, considering I knew I was going to be hitting 3 to 4 different spots on the island in the 3 weeks that I'm here. So I'm here from December 12th through January 2nd, and then I head inland back to the mainland. So I ended up changing and doing a one-way from Dallas all the way to Zanzibar, and it really was only $50 extra to fly from Dar es Salaam, which they don't pronounce it that way. They say they don't, so we enunciate each syllable, but when they say it, I'm like, what are y'all talking about? And then I figured it out. It's Dar. They don't say S, Dar. So anyway, y'all know what I'm trying to say. So anyway, I ended up just deciding to fly directly over, get my transfer, and go straight to my hotel rather than stopping in the mainland, considering I know I'm going to be on the mainland for about some time after this. So I'm going to spend some time here. That's the other reason why I take one-ways. Number one, because I don't plan on coming back to the United States. That's always how I feel. Honestly, when I travel, I haven't been to, there's only one place I've been to that I'm iffy about, but that's a city, not the country. And there's other cities within that country that I love to death, and that's Spain. And specifically Madrid is one that I haven't just, it doesn't warm, fuzzy my heart. Whereas I really enjoyed Barcelona. Montserrat was nice. Malaga as well. So, and El Churro was, off the beaten path in the mountains and stuff. So, of course, I love that. But, so I do it for flexibility, number one. And a lot of it is my personality and how I travel. I know a lot of people like to have the security of knowing when you're going to leave and when you're going to come back, especially with what's going on and things of that nature. Number two, you don't necessarily have flexibility. So, for me, even when I had my full-time job, I had flexibility. So I'll give you an example. Last December, so every December I travel. So this would not be any different than any year where I travel. I travel for the month of December and my birthday. It has become our family, my siblings' tradition. We typically travel for our birthdays because 3 of us, 4, if you include spouses, have birthdays in December. And so that became our tradition that we started about 4 or 5 years ago. And so why stop now? So anyway, I was going to be gone anyway this year because I was planning on taking 6 to 8 months off and traveling starting in March. And then, of course, COVID happened and pushed that back. So number one, don't plan on coming back to the U.S. Oftentimes. That's why when people are like, what if you get stuck over there? I'm like, please get me stuck. Number two, flexibility. A lot of times I don't necessarily know where I'm going to go or where I want to go or what I want to do. And it's much easier to grab pickup flights once you get somewhere. So like I said, if you got some flexibility, this time I did not travel light and I regret it. This is the first time in 5 years. I don't even think I've ever traveled this heavy. I have so much stuff, you guys. I swear, for God, I'm giving half of it away because I cannot travel like this. I have way too much stuff. And I was just trying to make sure I had things for every area. Some areas are way more conservative, obviously, on the island. When you're on the beach, it's just free for all or whatever. Not free for all because you can't go nude. But when you're in the villages, you need to be conservative. When you're on the mainland, you need to be more conservative. When you go further into the mountains, it's a little bit colder. So I just have stuff, and I knew I was going to be gone longer. So, but when you have flexibility and you can move and shake around, it's easier to me to buy a one-way ticket and then kind of figure out where I'm going. So I do have, and I'm going to just briefly talk about this because I want to talk about visas on the next episode. But for Tanzania specifically, the United States passport requires a multi-entry visa to get into Tanzania. So there's two visas that you can get. You can get a one-time entry and a multi-entry visa. The United States is only allowed the multi-entry. It costs the same. So you might as well get the multi-entry. But what that, and it's good for a year. But what that means, though, is not that you could stay for 12 months. You can still only stay for 3 months at a time. And you have to show when you're applying for the visa, and I'll talk about this more on the next episode, you have to show that you have an exit flight. So I did have to buy another flight, about another one way, from Dar to Johannesburg. Why? Because it was the cheapest flight. Not because I'm necessarily going to Johannesburg, which I do want to go to South Africa, but I didn't know in which order, because if they open up Cairo, I got to go see the pyramids, y'all. But because it was the cheapest flight, it was like $200. So if it's like a win or lose thing, of course, you know, the least amount of money that you can lose, that's what you want to do. And try to get airline tickets that allow you, or book with airlines that allow you to change your flights. Like Qatar right now, Qatar Airlines is like the number 2 airline. Ethiopian Air's in Africa is number 1. Qatar is allowing you, if you buy your ticket before December 31st, so I'm telling y'all this now, you heard it here first, that for the whole year of 2021, you can exchange your ticket multiple times without penalty with Qatar Airways. And I loved flying Qatar. I flew Qatar here directly and only had one stop, technically one stop. We did stop in Dar, and it was only like a 45-minute flight to come over, but that was just to refuel from Doha. So anyway, so we'll talk about visas on the next episode, but that's the other thing that you have to contend with. So buying one-way flights. So if I would have bought a round-trip ticket from Dallas here and then Dallas going back, then I would have a flight all the way back to the States in March. Now you can apply for extensions. So technically, I could just keep applying for extensions, keep applying for extensions, keep applying for extensions. I don't know the full process, but I do have a friend that's here, and she went and applied for an extension, and it took like no time for her to get that extension. She, went into town and did whatever needed to be done, and bam, she was good. She's good to go for another month. But I just chose to go ahead and buy a ticket to a place that I wanted to visit anyway. So if I keep that ticket, I'll go to Johannesburg for maybe a week, visit 7 to 10 days, visit that area however long. Might not even need to stay that long. I think people say for them you could do 5 days and be good. And then I can come back if I want to come here or decide where I want to go. So that's the other reason. So because I don't plan on coming back to the U.S. And number 2, for flexibility. And then number 3, once you get places, more times than not, this is why one of the reasons why I really question the structure of the United States is because the United States is fairly large, and each one of our states within the United States, technically, while we're under one federal constitution, one law, each state technically governs themselves in almost everything, all the way from what's considered statutory rape, all the way to gun laws. Yes. 2 things that I just pulled out of the woodwork, right? So depending, or cannabis laws. So depending on the state that you're in, you need to know like all the different laws, right? And so to me, that functions more like a country within a continent in itself, right? And the other part of that makes me feel that way too is in the States, our airline flights are just ridiculously expensive compared to if you go to Europe and or even Africa for that matter, anywhere east, it's so much cheaper to fly abroad. Just keep going and moving. And I'll give some examples specifically from my last couple of trips and how much money I ended up spending and the places I went to, as opposed to if I fly within the United States. Let's say the cheapest flight that I can get from Dallas is flying to Oklahoma for like $90, $70 maybe on Southwest. And that's with a stop probably. You know what I'm saying? But I got to go to Houston first. Like, it's going to fly me from Dallas to Houston to... Really? Doesn't make any sense. Why our flights are... And of course, we have specials and deals and stuff like that. But it's still ridiculous. When you've gone abroad, and I know people are going to be like, yeah, but you got them Spirit flights and stuff like that. But Spirit flights are the same as if you fly abroad, you get used. That is an actual normal way of flying, is to do things a la carte. We're so used to, you know, and I'm going to talk on that too. We're so used to give me everything, and we waste so much. So we have a lot of waste because we're just so used to being handed things. But is it necessary to have? Would you want it if it was never offered in the first place? Sometimes for a 2-hour flight, just leave me alone. Let me take a little nap, look out the window, do a little reading, catch up on whatever I need to go. We landed in 2 seconds anyway. To see people up and down the aisle with carts and all of this, and then coming back, all of that, for you to get a half a cup of water with no ice, or a half a cup of tomato juice or ginger ale, is just ridiculous sometimes, right? But you're paying for that. You're getting your extra. It's not worth it. That's like a 50-cent pop, you guys. And so, like, when you start to put those things in perspective and you start to actually add those things up, is it worth having? So, for example, if you start looking at Ryanair, I flew Volaris in Mexico. Trying to think of some of the other airlines. TAP Airlines, TAP Portugal. I flew a lot when I was in Portugal. Gosh, there's so many that I just can't think of. All the names will come to me as I'm probably doing this live video. But I literally, so I'll give you an example. Last year in December, this is why I only book one-way flights. Last year in December, I booked my one-way to Madrid. Or did I fly directly into Barcelona? I may have flown directly into Barcelona. I flew into Madrid, stayed, and then bam, popped over to Barcelona. Hey, Edward. Hey, Anitra. Hey, Sway. George, Roman. You guys let me know where you are checking in from. Hey, Larry. Just type in there where you guys are listening from. That would be fantastic. So, anyway, let me see. So, last year I flew into Madrid. No, I think I'm lying. I flew straight into Barcelona. So the year before I did 5 countries, 2 continents, I think, too. Last year I did 2 continents, 5 countries, 9 cities in 22 days. Okay. I booked my flight to Spain. Typically, from the U.S. to Spain is about the cheapest, unless you're flying to the UK. And in December, I ain't flying to the UK, although I did go to the UK last year. That's a whole nother episode in itself. We're gonna do an episode on how Ali misses flights, right? So I just don't like to fly into somewhere cold if I don't have to. France is pretty inexpensive usually as well, but I don't have a desire to go back to France right now. But going into Spain, you pretty much, it's like that central location. You can get everywhere from there pretty cheap. So then after I went into, I flew into Barcelona, and then I took a train up to Montserrat to do the mountain stuff or whatever. Then I took a flight from Barcelona to Malaga. That flight was $17. Then I took from Malaga I was going to Faro, Portugal, but I went by way of Porto, which gave me 1 whole day in Porto. And I hadn't been to Porto yet, so that's the reason I did it. That flight was $46. So with a stop. So it had a stop in Porto. I got the whole day in Porto. It happened to rain the entire day, but I did do the bridge. And then flew from Porto to Caravaggio or Faro, Portugal, which is south of Lisbon. So it's like on the cusp area by Gibraltar Straits. Gibraltar Straits. I think it's Gibraltar. I say anyway. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that was $46. Okay, and then from there, I took, instead of booking a flight from Faro to Lisbon, I took a Uber to Silvis and caught the bus from Silvis to Portugal. The cost was $20. The Uber was like $7. I got to see another city. I got to see another Moorish castle in Silvis, walk around the town, and take a 3-hour bus ride, which, yes, is longer than a flight, but it ends up being the same amount of time. When you get to an airport an hour early, you're at the airport, you got to check in, check all your bags, all that stuff, although I only had 2 backpacks at the time, and then do all that stuff. It ends up being the same amount of time when I just tossed it on a bus, got in my seat, had extra spare seat, had my liquor with me. I had my wine. It was some wine that I had from lunch. Had all my lunch that was left over, chilled, and perfect drive from Silvis, Portugal to Lisbon. And got there, bam, jumped in an Uber and got to my apartment. So those are some of the other things. You have some flexibility, right? And I knew for that trip, I knew I was taking 22 days or whatever. So I had some time built in there. And then from there, I ended up buying a flight from Portugal to the UK and back, and that was $45. And I didn't take anything with me except a purse, which ended up being a mistake because I missed my flight coming back. We'll talk about that too. But it was really inexpensive flying there, doing the round trip. I did buy a round trip for that because I was going for a day and coming back the same day. I was meeting my brothers. But then I missed my flight and I ended up paying $200 to come back the next morning because there were no other flights. And I was flying to Senegal the next day out of Portugal. So I had to get back. I had no choice. So that's one thing that ended up being a little bit more expensive. But that had nothing to do with the flights. That had to do with just mistiming, catching the trains, and trying to get from one part of the UK to the other part on their evening train, and anyway, not understanding like how things completely stop and all of that. So, I chalk it up to a learned experience, right? So that's one of the reasons why I buy one-way flights, because you have flexibility. And as I'm going, I literally, different places that I go, you get these little pop off maps. And like, I didn't even know this area over here, Pemba, I think it's called, Pemba Island, was so rich with cultural things that I'd want to see. So now I got to come back if I don't go and do this within this week, because I also don't like to cram a lot of things, right? And so what you end up finding is there's other things that you may want to see that may be outside of the norm of what everybody else does, and I typically am that person. Like, I'll do the basic stuff just to let you know what the normal touristy things are. But sometimes I want to see some other things, especially if it has a little bit of nature, if there's some caves involved. You guys know me, I love caves, and different things like that. And so, or cultural, historical things that are actually interesting or talk about our history in that particular location, right? So that is why I only book one-way flights. On occasion, I'll book a round trip. Like I said, the UK one was a round trip, and that was because it was $46 for a round trip ticket. That's silly not to book it, right? Because I knew I had to come back. But allows you some flexibility to kind of come and go, and then plan as you go. So then you can finagle your budget the way that you need to, based on the things that are important. So like, if there was something that you were going to go see and the weather ends up being bad, well, you can like scratch that off the list and then just go somewhere else, right? So just some little tips and things that I do. And it doesn't have to be a super long vacation for you to do that. On my way back, so I went to Senegal after that, and I did book a one-way to Senegal. That was $246 from from Lisbon to Senegal. It was like 200, I think 246 one way. And that was about the cheapest. It was Christmas when I flew, so that was probably a little high. $246 was a little high. From one continent to a whole nother continent, $246 was high, because it was, quite frankly. And I flew on a Soul plane, straight up, y'all. This plane was so old. This plane was so old. Like, I have never seen, first of all, I didn't know how the air held the plane up. It was that old, like it was heavier than a space shuttle, right? Like everything was like that real thick. The seats were thick. There was probably only 10 of us on this plane. I was like, I don't even know how. That's probably the only way we stayed in the air. But anyway, learned a lot from that. And that was, what was that? That was Cabo, or I can't think of the country, because it's named after the country. That's on the west coast of Africa, but they consider it Spain, I think, still. But it's part of Africa. Anyway, one of my good friends is from there. And it's like so embarrassing. I can't even think of the name of it. But anyway, that was the airline. So we flew there. That was $246. And then I bought a one-way from Senegal to back to Madrid, with a stop in Marseille. And I've always wanted to go to Marseille because I wanted to go to the Chateau d'If. If y'all know the movie, The Count of Monte Cristo, that is the big kind of attraction to go and see. Of course, I go. So this use this as another episode to do. Don't jump off a plane as a connecting flight, like, and you stay on the plane, because your bags go with it. And I got off and took the day to go see the Chateau d'If. Everything was closed anyway. I didn't even get to go see it. And it took me 2 days to get my bag. And it was New Year's Eve in Madrid. So I was without a bag, without my stuff for like 2 days. Anyway, that was all fun and games and everything. And then from there, I flew from Madrid. Instead of flying Madrid back to Dallas, I then bought my ticket, I think, like the day or two before. And I flew from Madrid to Miami, which was maybe $300, something like that. And then from Miami to Dallas. That was a whole fiasco in itself too, but I met a fantastic girl on the plane, and we are still connected and friends today. So all kinds of wonderful things can happen when you create flexibility when you fly. So this is why I only book one-way tickets. So that's one of the things, like, I want to share, because that's something that I do a lot. And if you have any questions about one-ways, I do know a lot of people like the comfort. And then if you're traveling with family, of course you want the comfort of knowing you already have your ticket, knowing that you have probably a good price or whatever. I have seen prices drop to closer to, especially this year. I've seen prices drop, and then I was like, after I even got my free ticket to Tanzania, the prices dropped. Really? So, that it kind of fluctuates. So if you have a little flexibility, give it a try. Maybe do it with a short distance flight or something like that. But again, I will say, traveling within the United States has always cost me more typically than traveling outside. And that's one of the reasons why I travel more internationally. Not because I think necessarily other countries outside of the United States and visiting states within the United States are so much better. It's the amount of money that I'm going to spend. I'd much rather do it internationally than, I jumped one border state over and I spent $300. I spend $400 to fly to California or to New York or even Chicago for that matter. But I could fly for $500 to Madrid. Okay, so that's just me. So that's why I end up doing that, right? Okay, so let's jump to one of you guys' questions. So Ashanti Titus, let me see if I said hey to everybody. Ashanti Titus says, she asked me a couple questions. I'm going to answer two. I think she asked me three. What are the differences between, okay, so you guys, her question is, what are the differences between Mexico and the U.S.? And the reason she asked me that is because most of you guys know I was in Mexico for 4 months last year. This year, it ain't 2021 yet. So I was in Mexico from July 29th through November 27th. So I was short 4 months by 2 days. Anyway, I'm gonna say 4 months. And in that time, I visited 10 different cities in Mexico. That's another thing I want to talk about. The same as I say, when we talk about Africa, Africa is a continent with countries within it, and then cities and so on, so forth there within those particular countries. Mexico is huge. Mexico is bigger than Cancun and Los Cabos. Like, those are the two places, like, everybody knows Los Cabos, Mexico City, and Cancun. And typically people only travel to Cancun or Los Cabos. Well, this time for my the trip that I took, because I've been to Cancun a couple times. I went to Cancun. My first time to Cancun, y'all, was 22 years ago. I took my son when he was 7. I think he was 7 years old, and we went to Cancun. It was way different than it is today. Like, visually, it doesn't even look like the same Cancun to me. Like, I don't remember it at all the same way. So anyway, this trip I went to Tulum. It's my first time ever going to Tulum. My first time even hearing about Tulum. Y'all, Tulum been on the map for years. People been going to Tulum forever, and it's always been known as like this yoga spot, this Zen place for connection and, you know, serenity and peace and kind of renewing yourself and all of that. That's what Tulum has always been known for. I ain't never heard of it. Wish I had heard of it well before now. Anyway, ended up going to Tulum. That was the trip I talked about on the last episode that cost me $45 from Dallas one way, which is why I ended up staying for 4 months, because they put 6 months on my passport thingy that I could stay. So that's another reason why, because you just got different amounts of time that you can enjoy yourself, spend a little bit more time if you have that flexibility. So I went to Tulum. I went to Isla Mujeres, which is an island north of Cancun. I spent a couple days in Cancun, and that was because I was transitioning from Tulum to Mexico City. Went to Bacalar, Chetumal, and Mahahual, which are all on the southern east coast of Mexico, right on the border of Belize. Like, you could get in the water and swim, and now you in Belize. Somebody told me don't do it though. Anyway, ended up hitting those 3 cities because we had like 3 tropical / hurricane storms one week after another when I was there. It was like October. Yeah, the month of October was a little horrific. So we were running from the storm, and we ended up hitting 3 places. And that's going to be another episode when I talk about bad nomads for life, when I talk about the people I ended up traveling with, the people that I've met along my journey, and why having some flexibility allows you to be open enough to meet other people. So for me, traveling is more than, I'm going somewhere and getting away. Like, that has always been a thing. Let me get away, try to refresh and rejuvenate myself. But it's always been to meet other people and build some real long-term lasting relationships, okay? And then finally, my last 2 cities, there's 2 more places I'm missing because I went to 10 places. Oh, well, there's 2 places mixed in here, kind of, sort of. Because I don't really count Playa, although I was in Playa, and I was in Cozumel too. But I don't really count them. But I went to Mexico City and Acapulco for my first time ever. And I want to be able to use those to answer the question from Ashanti Titus. The differences between the U.S. and Mexico. So first of all, I said all of that, and I shared all of those cities, the cities within Mexico. So there's territories like Quintana Roo, which encompasses like the Cancun down to like the Chetumal area. Then the Merida has another name, Yucatan, I think it is, and like so there's like different, and those are like considered states. Acapulco is in Guerrero, I think is how you say it. So the southern part, then of course Mexico City, and then there's another part, right? And within that there are the cities. If I wouldn't have gone to Mexico for this long, I wouldn't know any of this, right? You think of Mexico, the way that we refer to Mexico is just it's Mexico, right? And so you think, everybody thinks you're going to get your ears cut off, or you're going to Cancun to party, or you're going to Los Cobos because you romantically on a vacation. Like, literally, that's what everybody thinks of Mexico for the most part, right? Except people who have explored or lived, right? And so what's the difference between U.S. and Mexico? So this, I think, carries over for pretty much every place. First of all, they're very similar. If we're talking about people in general, the concept of life is the same for all people. Like, everybody wants the best for their families. Everybody wants good livelihoods. The difference is in what we deem is a good livelihood, right? What our experiences are and what our surroundings tell us is quality, right? So those are the different things. Those are the things that are slightly different, but to me, they're all the same because there's just different levels. It's like the movie Date Night. In Date Night, you got two different couples. You got the couple that's in the city, Kill Shot, that's all I remember, right? Tina Fey is in that movie. And then you got your middle class couple that's, doing whatever. But the point is they're both on a date night. They're both trying to spend time with each other. Lights are flickering. They're both trying to spend time with each other, have a good date. They're both like love, but they're doing it differently. So the concepts are the same, but how we achieve it is slightly different. Hold on, y'all. I'm gonna get my charger and plug my phone in. 1 second. Okay. Like I said, you guys who joined late, sorry for the lack of ambiance tonight. The buzz was out and I came in, so you guys get to see the bedroom or the hotel room or whatever. You get to see the netting on the bed. So anyway, the other things that to me are potentially different, well, I'd say the biggest difference, slower pace. We have a term here in Tanzania. It's called pole pole, go slow. They have it in Belize. They have 2 cemeteries and 1 hospital. So that means it's like, take your time. It's going to be there when after you're doing all that rushing, it's still going to be there, so slow down. One of the things that we know in the U.S. as well as European countries is that everything is it's already late, right? So we're always rushing. We're always in competition with time. It's not even so much we're in competition with other people. We're in competition with time, and time is always going to win, right? So you can challenge me on that if you want to, but time is always going to win, right? So one way or the other. So I think the slower pace, let's see, what else did I note? Oh, this is one thing that's pretty different from Mexico to U.S. And you see this in a lot of different countries. And it's a cultural thing, too. And I kind of find some positives in it, especially considering how we rear our children in the U.S. Hey, you guys. Hey, Terrence. Hey, Veronica. Hey, April. As you guys are joining, let me know where you are checking in from. Tell me your city that you're watching from. So one of the things that is big to me that I noticed is the children's hustle. The kids' hustle game is for real in Mexico. So in Mexico, like different places, kids will come up to you, but you don't see this in the U.S. because we have no peddler laws and stuff like that. Like, you gotta have a permit to be homeless, pretty much. I'm having one of the Tanzanian beers, Kilimanjaro. I always say it wrong. Kilimanjaro is the mountain that a lot of people climb. Anyway, this is my in-room special. So, children's hustle. In Mexico, these kids hustle from morning to evening, and you get used to, you see the same kids over and over, and they're with their mom typically, or they'll be by themselves. It doesn't matter which city you're in. I was in Mexico City. They was in Mexico City deep, Tulum deep. Let me see if I don't even recall if they were in Mahahual. And we weren't in Bacalar, Chetumal long enough, maybe like 3 days. So I didn't really get to see it there. But some of these other places, Tulum, it is heavy. These kids are out working it. And they will sell you anything. Like this bracelet I got from Tulum. I've had this bracelet I think I bought it in September. And I have not taken it off yet. So I'm just going to tell y'all, these little $2 bracelets that you pay a little 20 pesos for, like $3 or whatever, however much, 60 pesos is $3 or something like that. They last. So go ahead and support the community and get you a bracelet, or however many that you want to support. But the kids are out hustling. So that's something that's major, different. Just people in general being able to peddle is what we call it in the United States. But being able to sell, they can walk up to you. It does become semi-annoying, no lie, when you're trying to eat, or if you're even having a conversation. They will literally sit right here. And if they used to seeing you, they will tap on you until you acknowledge them so that they can sell you something. And then it's, if you say, no thank you or whatever, they go into please buy one, just, and then how much, however, 50 pesos, and if you try to bargain with them or whatever, they tell you no. So they're really intelligent. And they know how to hustle. And the one thing I think about that is work ethic. So later on in life, this might be why, we see differences in work ethic. And I know people may disagree with that and say, well, kids shouldn't be working at that early age. And I say, we all could learn a little responsibility earlier on, right? Maybe not be out in the street hustling like that, because it is annoying, but that's their way of life, and that's how they feed themselves. That's how they, support the family. Everybody got to put their time in. And so that's one of the things I think is majorly different. The other thing I think that is really different is the militia, policia. They ride around in the streets like with AK-14s or AK-47, whichever ones, y'all know, they all look the same to me. I know they're different guns, but they look the same. And so instead of like regular, so they do have police cars, but they're always like trucks and stuff, specifically like in Tulum. In Mexico City, they have cars like we're used to seeing, and they have cops with regular, 9mm. But in like Tulum, Playa del Carmen, I didn't see any in Isla. It's more of an island. It's more reserved and quiet. Acapulco. Trying to think. Did they have militia? Or did they have like more like, I call them like military type detail people. Or what we would consider to be like your National Guard kind of folks riding around. So that's different, is you see their presence a lot, but, I never felt threatened by them. Oh yeah, they do have them in Acapulco. I often, if they would ride by, I would, say hola or buenos dias, and they would all say buenos dias back, so it was never an issue or anything like that. I never felt uncomfortable and stuff. So that's probably another difference. And then I would say conservative clothing for the women. One of the things that I witnessed and saw quite often was, they always are covered up. They're very, very conservative in their dress. Even here, well, here it's Muslim, but like swimming, the women would swim fully clothed. And now I've become so accustomed to it that when I'm here, actually today I was walking around and today and yesterday I was walking around on the beach, and just to see these kids in like jeans, like not even like shorts or a t-shirt, it's like jeans and a what do you call them, polo. It's like, what do you call it, polo shirt, jumping in the ocean, fully clothed. They probably by the time they got home they were fully dry because it's so hot out here anyway. But so that's another thing is how they dress, and so you see that that kind of difference between how we are. I mean, I guess we're conservative depending on, I mean, you don't walk up and down the street with a thong on in the U.S. unless you're technically at a beach, but when we go to different countries we do it, so it's like we'll be in their downtown with thongs on because it's beach. And so it's things I think that we don't think about. I don't know that we're overtly being disrespectful as much as we're not even conceptually thinking that this is where most of them live, and so to walk around like that is disrespectful. So anyway, those types of things. And then your Ashanti's other question was, is one stereotype that I feel is not accurate. I don't know so much if this is a stereotype, but first of all, I want to say our tacos ain't the same as they tacos. Like what we call tacos ain't a taco. And then I also learned, I'm just going to say this, that taco is related to corn tortilla. It's not a taco if it ain't on a corn tortilla. I learned that when I was in Mexico City, and we went, I think I did one of their food thingy tours, and they were talking about their mole sauce and all this, and when they make their tacos, and if it's not corn, it's not technically a taco. Anyway, so different things I learned. So but I want to say one of the main things that I think we should learn and know is that you ain't got to worry about the cartel. The cartel ain't thinking about you, okay? Most of the time, I've had people ask me, "Ooh, are you concerned? I heard their cartel is." I mean, number one, are you dealing drugs? Number two, are you buying drugs? In the amounts that you need to, I mean, because I don't know what you're buying. We're not talking about brownies here. In the amount that you would, like, there would even be some sort of alert to your presence. Like, all of a sudden, you're so different because you bought some weed or whatever. I want us to get that stereotype out of our head, or that belief system that we have that when you go to Mexico City, they riding around and gonna cut off your ear and all of this stuff. Y'all, I was solo and I walked around for 3 weeks in Mexico City by myself. And I went to a lot of different places. I did read up on the places that you shouldn't go, and they are literally designed, their cities are designed very similar to ours. So using common sense. So they have areas by hospitals, just like in the States, that you just don't walk around, because typically those areas are in lower class neighborhoods. Typically, most major hospitals are in lower class neighborhoods, so you're typically going to have more of your transient people or different types of situational things. So you want to make sure that you are aware of those types of things and remain vigilant. But it's no different than in the U.S., right? So if you are concerned about the cartel, but you're a normal person living and walking around doing normal things, they ain't thinking about you. They are not thinking about you. Unless you like a Rockefeller or something, and there's a reason for them to have a target on your back, right? So that would be the one thing that I would say is inaccurate, is us thinking that because we're Americans and, Mexican nationals or whatever are targeting us. The one thing I will say that was really interesting when I went to Mexico City is the first time that I've ever been, and I did a live video on this, the first time that in all the cities that I visit, excuse me, you guys, gotta get that yawn out. The first time that I have experienced being stared at, looked at like as if I was somewhere far away from the U.S. or whatever. So I thought that was kind of interesting. especially for Mexico City. And so I'm not sure if it was because I was walking alone by myself, they didn't know what I was, or whatever the case may be, but I noticed a lot of that. So that was a little bit different. Okay, so that was a question from Ashanti. Thank you for that question. If you guys have other questions, you are more than welcome to type them here. Again, I am doing tips on traveling and answering you guys' questions. So we've already talked about why I only book one-way flights. If you guys miss it, you'll have to watch the replay to get some of those examples and, some of the things I shared. And then I just answered a question, the differences between Mexico and the U.S. and stereotypes that are inaccurate. And I think it's an important question to kind of clear up some things about Mexico, because we hear so much negativity. Number one, now there's places in Mexico we are told not to go to, and it's pretty much anything bordering Texas, like down to Mexico City. If you're not on a tour, you don't need to be there. Stuff like that. I mean, it's like some things are common sense. And then they have different guidelines and things like that, especially if you're trying to drive through. They tell you you need to be with some people, like you need to know some people. You shouldn't just be crossing the border in a car because you can. You come over in Tijuana because you're just a border patrol and you can just drive over. We got to exercise some bits of logic and things like that when we're doing those types of things. But I think it's a poignant question, because right now it is one of the closest places to travel for U.S. passport holders, and it is pretty inexpensive to travel there. So most people are going to Mexico right now. Mexico is getting an influx. And so one of the things I do want to say about us traveling to Mexico is remember that we are traveling to another country. Remember that there are cultural differences. Remember that there is a level of respect that they have, and that we should have for them as well. I'm going to talk about the service industry when I answer this next question, and this applies to everything and everyone. And I think one of the things as Americans that we typically do is we go places and we expect everything to be the same as where we are in the U.S. And everybody doesn't move the same. That doesn't mean that the quality is bad. It doesn't mean that the service is bad. It just means that this is how they do things. And so sometimes we have to be willing to adjust our thought process, our behavior, and our expectations to fit where we're going. And the only way we can do that is if we take a little time to actually Google where we're going, and just learn a little bit about, their dress code, you learn a lot if you know what their main religion is, or what languages that they speak, and things like that. Get yourself a translator, use your Google Translator, learn basic hellos and goodbyes, and respect them enough. Like we could be in the U.S. and mad because two Mexican nationals having a conversation in their native language, and we get upset about that, but we can go to their country and we can't even say hola. I mean, come on, you guys. So give things its due respect. And I guarantee you, one of the things I know for certain is yes, we can accomplish a lot by barking. We can accomplish a lot by barking because people want you to shut up, quite frankly. But we don't long-term accomplish anything positive. So think about those types of things. We leave a lasting impression either way, but what's the impression you actually want to leave? And some people don't care about it, and some people do. The thing that we have to think about is for the next person that's going, or when we want to return, how do they view us holistically? Because they're not singling out and saying, oh, this person or that person. They're kind of grouping everyone together. And I'm just talking about people visiting. I'm not talking about any race of people. I'm just talking about people visiting in general. And just being mindful of where we're visiting and caring enough about those people to show them the respect that they deserve. You know what I'm saying? So that's my spiel on that. One other thing I just want to say before I answer this next question, I said this last time on the video, if you don't have your passport, apply for it. I know passport time frames had extended. due to the pandemic and offices being closed, but I believe that those things have changed, and they've picked back up and all that. I cannot stress what that $160 can do. As an adult, if you're over the age of 15, I believe, it is good for, if you're over I think it's 15, is it 10? Anyway, it's good for 10 years. From 2, you can get your first passport at 2 years old through 10 or 15, whatever the age is. It's good for 5 years, and it's because obviously your facial features change quite a bit during that time frame. So about $110 to $160 depending on the age. Get the 52 pager. It doesn't cost any more. Get the basic. You don't need the passport card and the passport. We don't have to pay for a card and a book, especially if you don't travel that much. Just get the book. Don't pay the extra for all this other stuff you don't necessarily need unless your state requires a passport card, which I don't think that's a requirement yet. Get the 52 pager. It's 52 pages in the same passport book. Doesn't cost any extra money. Otherwise, I think it's 29 to 32 pages. So why not get 20 extra pages? That might entice you to get some stamps in your passport book, right? So I just want to say that. Get it. Go ahead and apply for it. If you don't know what to do and can't, print it out on your own, just go to Google locations in your area that are accepting passports and or taking your picture for you, to ensure that all your paperwork and stuff is completed, and they send it in for you and you get all your stuff back, right? Okay, so the second question that I have that I'm going to answer is from Andre L. Amun, I'm not sure if I'm saying your last name right. But one of the questions was, what is the average cost of lodging in Mexico? And that was because, again, I was in Mexico, so why the focus on Mexico? Because I was in Mexico, and then do I bargain for food, lodging, and or other expenses? And I would include taxis, transportation, excursions, stuff like that. So I want to start talking about average cost of lodging. So the last time we did this conversation, I talked about going into accommodations in another episode. So we'll touch on it a little bit here. One of the things I want to, not one, but a number of things I want to touch on is that's just, it's a very broad question to say what is the average cost of lodging. Because you can find, everything depends on your standard, your requirements, how long you're staying, mandatory amenities, location, where you're at. Everything really depends. You can have like high-end luxury and be in Merida, which is in the Yucatan, and be paying $32 a night. And for the same exact level of that in Tulum, it's going to cost you $250 a night. So it really it depends on, where do you fit between the 1-star and the 5-star? What do you have to have? You need the infinity pool, with the lovebird swing and the in-house chef or all-inclusive, so you can literally pay anywhere from $15 a night. So if you're talking about hostels, some hostels are just as expensive as rooms to me, why would you pay to stay in a hostel unless it's for the community part of it, over getting your own personal room, right? So you can go from, let's say, $15 a night. It doesn't even have to be a hostel. You can actually find rooms that are like this. That are that inexpensive. $15 a night, all the way up. Y'all, I have seen prices in places like Tulum. I've seen prices in Acapulco, which are $1,000 a night. Tulum can be just as high. It depends on the season that you're traveling as well. So what I say to that is do your planning. Google. Do some Google searches. Use the tools that I shared in the last episode. If you guys go on a search for my travel tips, and I'll post them on here too. You'll see the links that I shared of my most used travel tools that'll help you with researching where to stay, how much it costs, doing your price comparisons, all of those things. And then being able to select your amenities, because what is good for the goose may not be good for the gander. What you like may, or what you need or what you require may be different from another person, right? So that's when I say the average cost of lodging, I don't answer that question, because and that's pretty much, that's anywhere, even here in Tanzania. And when I was in Senegal, I mean, I'll tell you what I've spent here. So I came in December, so I already knew this month was going to be more expensive. For most people, if I tell you the amount, you'll be like, oh, well, that's not that high. But I am staying for an extended period of time. So when you think of staying for, when you're thinking of staying for an extended period of time, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, 2 months, that's different than staying for 3 to 5 days. So to spend $300 a night for 3 to 5 days, as compared to spending $300+ a night for a whole month, that makes a difference. So you kind of I have to change what I'm looking for. What is a requirement, how much moving around I'm going to do, things of that nature. So it starts to make a bit of a difference when you're looking at the amount of time that you're actually going to be visiting a particular location. So I always say, do your checks, do your planning in advance, and kind of write down what you need. And then, like, location wise, what are you going for? Where, you might be just going because, man, look, I need to get away, I need to hide, I need to be in the quietest place, nobody's gonna find me, with some Wi-Fi. That's your major requirement, is Wi-Fi, right? Secluded area, maybe a beach or whatever, it doesn't matter, so those are the things that you're looking for. You may not be looking for a place that has 3 restaurants inside and concierge service that is going to set up your tickets and all that. You might not need all those types of things. So it's important to know what it is that you are looking for and what is going to make your vacation top notch for you. And then the next question was, do I bargain for my food, lodging, or other expenses? Let me answer that with the talk on the service industry. I was going to do a live about the service industry. Time is it? Okay, so I've been on about an hour. I was going to do a live about the service industry, specifically to talk about how dependent other places are on tips. Now, of course, in the U.S., we have the service industry, and we still have a very antiquated service industry base. At one point in time, it was like $2.35 an hour plus tips, where tips aren't required. Just so weird, right? And then I don't even know what the minimum wage is for a waitress or, wait staff or whatever in the U.S. Is it $7 yet? I don't even know. It's probably only $5. At one point it was like $4 something, and that's because they're assuming that you're going to make all this money in tips. Well, most places, obviously this year is just a little bit different from what we've seen in the past, because tourism has plummeted pretty much everywhere. And people have completely shut down, where they don't have anything to survive on. And you can kind of see that with the services. You can see that with the tours, in the tour industry, just in general with pricing. It's not necessarily, it's almost like it's tinkering on price gouging almost in some instances, where something shouldn't be expensive or as expensive as it is, but that they're also charging a lot, or they're having to drop their prices because everybody's competing right now, because now there's 50 people visiting whereas 2 months ago no one was here. So you'll also notice it in with reviews and things of that nature. So when you look at a review and the last review you see is from March, you have to remember why you don't see a review until October, because no one was traveling during that time frame. So you're not going to have, so it doesn't mean like that place is horrible. It just means like, and you'll see that with everything, like there's this huge gap of time where there's nothing to share and things like that. So the service industry, I have a unique connection to, because I worked in the service industry. I've worked in restaurants before. I've been a mixologist before, and done different things. Like I used to do hair for other people and hair services and things like that, where you have your normal charges, but you also can work off of tips and things as well. And one of the things that I think is critical for us to know is that most often when we are doing a tour, and let's say we're using TripAdvisor or Viator or any one of those, Airbnb I'm going to say is different because it's created by the person, but they still pay Airbnb a portion of it. But I'll use TripAdvisor and places like that, services like that, platforms like that, because often the company that is being represented, or the company that is the tour company, has its tour guides. Those tour guides, either in some instances through this pandemic, weren't getting anything. So let's say your tour was $50, dropped down to $30. Everybody's traveling, so they're going to decrease their prices. That $30, those tour guides may not have gotten anything. So your tip is their only income. And I ended up talking to someone who is in the safari tour guide business here in Tanzania, and he was specifically talking about, situations where they do tours 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 10-day safari tours, and they could have clients that want all of these different things, even though they know the schedule, and in the end, after 4 or 5 days of kind of trying to do their best to make their clients, their customers happy, they walk away with, I don't have any out, let's say they get tipped 10,000 shillings, which in Tanzanian dollars compared to U.S., it's less than $5 technically, because the exchange rate is 2,300 right now, 23.19 shillings to 1 USD. So if you've been with someone and they're your guide, making sure you're eating, capturing all the photos that you want to capture, and of course taking photos, because we want everybody to take our photos for us, sharing all the historical information, just making sure, taking all of our complaints, because most people complain a lot, and you give them 10,000 shillings, which is less than $5 for 4 days of paying. And that literally is all that they made for that tour. Maybe $20 out of your ticket or whatever. We have to think about those kinds of things. I think in our mind, we naturally think, I paid $50 for this tour. That's how much the tour guide gets. No. And if you ever have a question, ask them. If you're ever wondering, ask them. Build enough of a relationship or rapport and just say, hey, how much money? That's why a lot of times when you do a tour, well, for me, when I do a tour, I always try to tip when I get off the bus or out of the van. I always do that. Same with service industry. When you're thinking of your cleaning people, more times than not, we have cleaning every day in most hotels. I don't like cleaning every day. Number one, I don't want you in my room every single day. And if they don't have a safe, I don't want you in my room my entire stay. I will clean my own room. And that's just me in particular, because I carry a lot of stuff, have my passports and my credit cards and money and stuff like that, and I don't want to be hiding things, and because they always have a clause, we are not responsible for any theft. Well, then get a safe. Okay, well, you stayed there without a safe, so you got to deal with it. So just keeping in mind, when they come and clean every day, they may be making a salary, or maybe they're getting some concession from the place that they work at, like a discount on meals. I mean, it could be anything, but it's not going to be what you think. So for example, like cruise ships and stuff, they have a mandatory, at least back in the day, $11 a day for housekeeping, and that's automatically charged. Hey Dre, hey Don. That's automatically charged to your bill. So you have this daily charge, and you attach a credit card to it. And so if you do a 8-day cruise, which is 7 nights, you're gonna have an extra $77 on that bill, because you're gonna get charged $11 a day for them to clean. Why? They clean your room 3 times a day. Don't matter if you want them to clean it or not. And why? Is because for the most part, when you're on a cruise boat, you're in a pool, and you like in and out 3 times a day. So they literally, and they make you a animal towel every single time, right? So when you think about it, on a day-to-day basis, a person making $11 for cleaning your room 3 times, that's basically $3.33, maybe almost $3.89 every time that they walk in your room and clean it. So on a grand scheme of things, that's not that much, right? For them to come and tidy up your mess, and whether you want them to or not. And so the reason those things are important is because I think a lot of times we attach our ticket to the people that we see every day, and those aren't the people making that money. So I want to stress the service industry. So tying that to the question from Andre, do I bargain for food and lodging and other expenses? Typically not lodging and stuff like that, because I usually book it on Airbnb or booking.com or whatever platform. So ain't no bargaining like that. Maybe if I'm on a site and I'm trying to book for 2 months or something at a time, that's when you have the ability to kind of say, hey, if I stay a little bit longer, can I get a lower price? Because typically most places will afford you some discounts if you are staying for an extended period of time, as opposed to short term, 5 days, 30 days, they just book for the whole month. They ain't got to worry about this and that. And if they only do cleaning in the beginning and at the end, they just save all kinds of money. So of course you should, you can then ask for a discount. And I know people who do it often. In terms of like food, meaning like maybe markets, I think it kind of depends. So one of the things I always keep in mind is it's coming from a service industry. That extra 10,000 shillings that I didn't pay for something was literally $4. So in their grand scheme of things, did I really save, or did I just take something away from them? Now, of course, if you bought an apple and they charged you 20 shillings, which is $10 for an apple, yeah, you should negotiate. Like, you should understand your dollar. Like, you should know the conversion rates and things like that, so you can at least know if you don't want to be paying American prices if you're in the village in, Jambiani, you know what I mean? Because they will charge you. Like the one day before we came to Nungwi, which is where the city that I'm in, the area that I'm in on the island now, I bought some vegetables, and then I got some beers and one of their drinks called konyagi, which I renamed Yogiami. But anyway, they kind of got me on the veggies because I didn't feel like going and haggling. Plus, I was like, if I only just take 5,000 shillings off, that's like $2. So I was like, give it to them. And then when I went to buy my liquor, I know how much the liquor costs because I can go around the corner and get the big bottle because they sell their beer in the big bottles. I can go get it for $5,000, which is $2. So you're not going to charge me 10 for each. And then the little bottle of cognac I can get for $5 a couple doors down. So I gave him 15,000 shillings. I didn't even let him tell me the price. So it kind of just depends. Sometimes I bargain, sometimes I don't. Or not even bargain, but I'm just going to say what I'm going to pay. And sometimes you just have to know when you're being taken. Like when I went to Morocco and I bought spices, let me tell you, they got me. I spent like $100 and some on spices. Why? Because you get like so enamored with the prices, right? It's like $1 for a kilogram, or no, a milligram. Milligram is really teeny, right? Y'all, let me tell you. Once they put that stuff on that scale, you just like, did you just say $20 for some pepper? Because you'd be like, give me 5, whatever. I don't know. So anyway, so you just have to be mindful of those types of things. Hey, Verb, how are you, darling? You got to be mindful of those types of things and just bargain accordingly. So if you're in a situation where maybe you're at a person's stand and like they're selling tacos or something like that, and their tacos are $2, what you bargaining for? In Mexico, the best prices for tacos, let's say 3 tacos for 54 pesos. That's less than $1 for each taco, like $1.20 maybe for each taco, something like that, in USD conversion, I think, right? And so, or $2 maybe, but that is a very reasonable price, so when you're at one of these little stands, and then tip them afterwards, what's it going to harm you to give them an extra, 10 to 20 pesos or something like that, right? Because they may just be covering their costs while the stuff may be inexpensive, but they got kids to feed, and things of that nature. And if you just save because you didn't go to the high-end place where you normally would go and spend, 20. So some of these places, I'm gonna tell you, they charge $7 a taco. Like even in Mexico, you be at these places, you're like, how are you charging $7 a taco? And I can go over to, Jesus's spot and get 3 tacos. They like, because you here, you're gonna pay $7 a taco. So think about it from that perspective. If you're kind of switching off expensive to inexpensive, cultural, locals to trendy, some of the money that you might be saving, go ahead and use that to tip. So it kind of just really depends on certain things. When it comes to taxis and stuff, yes, if you can. Obviously with Uber, you can't bargain at all. But with taxis, you can, but you just need to make sure you have another way to get home. If you say no and you're not paying something. Key thing that I just was poor at doing was getting the cost before you get in the car. Before he drives off, do not get in the car until you have agreed on the price, right? One night I paid $15 to go around the corner. It was because it was really late. And, I didn't check. And it was 300 pesos, which is $15. And I was like, that's so foul. And it's because there was nobody out. And, maybe that's all he made that entire day. I don't know. But he decided to take advantage of me. And it was late. So I wasn't going to walk at this point. So those kinds of things, knowing that those types of situations, excursions, if you're buying, you got these people that will walk up to you and want to sell you excursions, you can bargain with them. If they're going to walk up to you, you can bargain if you need to. But typically, if it's something online, like Viator, you can't bargain. So it really just depends on how you spend, where you buy things, how you pay for things. If you do with a concierge, a lot of times you can finagle prices, like wherever you're staying. I'm trying to think of where I stayed. Where was I? This was in Thailand. And I ended up getting a great deal on this, the 3-island thingy to James Bond Island, and then Sunset dinner drink thingy on this private island that we all went to. And it was only like 7 of us that ended up being on this tour, and I ended up getting a really good deal because I did a comparison afterwards to just see how much it was normally, and then with it only being so few of us, that was even better and cheaper because typically they have for 25 people. And this was last year. This was last September. So I didn't know anything about COVID, and I am never a fan of taking things where you're crammed in with people. Number one, because it takes a long time to rotate through things. People are typically slower, so and you can't build relationships with people when you got all those people on there. So that would be my answer to that. Another good question, but a lot of it will boil down to you doing a little pre-planning and a little homework and knowing what your budget is, and then, which I did, I'm gonna be honest, y'all, I did a piss poor job of budgeting. I'm trying to do better this trip, but I know December is like out the water already, or it was going to be, because coming in December and trying to book everything during the holidays, they do pump up the prices and stuff like that. So just being prepared for those types of things, and then just knowing your conversions. Have your little tools on hand. I have my little translator. You got your little conversion. Do a conversion app if you don't want to type it in every time. Do a little conversion app. Get in your mind what a round number is. Even though it's 2,300 exchange rate, you just do 2,000 and you kind of can figure it out here in Tanzania. Hey Bridget, hey Christy. So yeah, I am wrapping up. So I'm just finishing up answering one of the last questions that was asked about my travel, lodging, and then bargaining for better prices. And then just tying that to the service industry and how we need to just be aware of how people in the service industry, especially in other countries, how they actually make their money. They don't get paid from the ticket price. They get paid for you tipping. So to close that part off, I would say, if you're booking something, an excursion, include mentally in your head a tip for your guide. Unless your guide sucks, and then you can share that with them. Maybe find out, maybe they're having a bad day. I don't know. But if you have an exceptional guide, typing a review doesn't help that guide per se as much as a tip does. Typing a review helps the tour company more than it helps that guide in that immediate moment. So just thinking about those types of things. I'm going to type them a great review. Well, that doesn't help, Michael today, but giving Michael a tip. So Michael walks away because he has spent 8 hours of his day catering to 10 different strangers or whatever, and 10 different strangers' needs, especially if they were, attentive and things of that nature with the entire group. So those are the things I like to be cognizant of. When we travel, but we also need to think about the people that we are touching every day when we travel, right? So it's not just about us. Like, we travel, well, I get to travel, do whatever. And I see this so often. I see people come and serve and clean for us, people cooking for us. Like yesterday, I tried to leave a tip. I see this happening so often. Let me finish this statement. And see people not tipping. I see, and it could be the people with the most questions or issues, and not once did they even leave $1. You know what I mean? And I just be sitting back like, dang, that's just foul. So sometimes what I always try to do is sometimes you can create the idea by doing it first. So I take out my money, and then other people, it's like sometimes you might even just forget, right? You might just be like, dang, I wasn't even thinking about it. Oh yeah, let me tip, or whatever. Take out your money so other people can see that you're going to actually tip. And when you get off the bus, or you leaving from the restaurant or whatever, make sure that you're that you tip, or people, and it's not to show off or anything like that. Sometimes it's to remind people, especially if you can see that person was doing their best to accommodate you in the group and stuff like that. And so, those are just some of the things I say. But I will add this. And hey, Mark, Sometimes I'll ask what's a good tip if I'm not familiar with the currency. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, because here in Tanzania, my first day I was just and didn't even know it because 10,000 shilling, like I said, is $4. So I'm giving people 20,000, and because they helping carry a bag and all this stuff. I ain't even asked you to carry my, they walk around carrying a bag like this big. I can carry this myself, right? And not even realizing, like, that's why I say you gotta have your mind right, because they get you in the beginning. And I asked somebody, it was like, 20,000 could be more than they make in an entire week. And I was like, you know what? Well, hopefully I just, help somebody out, and I look at it like that. But then you realize you can't do that every day, because USD to shilling, especially in touristy areas, is like going to Thailand. You exchange $250 in Thailand or even in Bali, and you got 2 million. You buy a shirt, that shirt costs $2 million. I swear to God, I'd be like, really? So you gotta do the things, or consider the things that make your dollar stretch, because if you're trying to compare it to U.S. Things, or you're in touristy areas, you're going to be paying a higher price anyway. So be mindful of that. And the other thing I want to say about that, Mark, you actually made me think of this, is when I was in Europe, depending on where you are, I was in Europe and in China, tipping is disrespectful in some instances. In Bali, they ask you to be quiet with it. So do it on a one-on-one basis, or actually they don't even say do it on a one-on-one basis. So let's say if you're staying in a villa and there was multiple people working in that villa, you pay a lump fee at the end based on how many people. You just kind of go around and collect all the tips that people are going to give, and you give that to the main person that managed the house, and they split it evenly. If you want to give extra, you have to do it privately. You can't taunt and be like, hey, I'm going to give you all this extra in front of. They don't do it like that at all. So there's courtesies, and those are other cultural things that we have to learn and understand as well, because then it creates strife amongst the workers, the people who are working together, because then it's like, well, how did you get this, or why did you get this? Not that that's our responsibility, but it is to a certain extent to understand those types of things. But one of the things when I was in Milan is when I realized this, is that they frown when you leave money on the table. Even when I was in China, like I kept trying to leave change for a tip, and they kept giving it back. And then I asked, and I said, is it not proper for me to tip? And he was like, no. Why? Because they actually include their service fee in their meals. So like if you go to Aperitivo in Milan, which is their happy hour, they basically have, and it's really crazy, like we need to do this in the U.S., but we just so cheap, and not cheap, but money hungry, and consumership and capitalism is like number one on our list. They have they'll serve for their happy hour, most places, like a buffet, a lavish buffet. You got every type of olive, cheese, and peppers, and chips, and all kinds of good meats, and all this stuff. They'll have all of that, and you're going and you're paying for a drink. All you can eat buffet stuff is included, plus what you would tip them is included. Don't leave any money, because that's just disrespectful. So you pay $7. It'll be like $7 for a drink. That $7 gets you a drink, and then you can continuously eat the rest of the night. And you basically just go from bar to bar or restaurant to restaurant, and you do that all night. But you can tip extra, but do it privately. You might want to call that person aside and say, I really appreciate how helpful you were, or whatever, and I just want to give you a little something extra. Is that okay for me to do? So always kind of do those kinds of things and check. But I just want to point out how in some of these places, they are living off of the tips only. They are not getting anything from our ticket that we just spent money on. So I'm just sharing the little behind the scene things that I'm learning along the way to just help us in general kind of be more successful, as well as be looked at in a more positive light when we travel and things like that. For the most part, when people think of Americans, they think pompous and they think wealthy. Somebody told me yesterday that I must be a boss. And I didn't understand what he meant, because he was like, how did you fly here? Because they don't think anybody from the U.S. can even fly to Africa right now, number one. And I was like, there's a lot of flights. Y'all country is open. Everybody come here. And then he thought it was like super expensive. I was like, well, actually, I flew for free. I mean, my flight ended up being $0 out of my pocket, or whatever. And so they have this concept, of, and that's why I typically don't tell anybody where I'm from. Everybody asks me, where are you from? Where are you from? Please tell me where you're from. And I'm just like, I'm from everywhere. Because I don't want you to prejudge me. I don't want you to assume I have so much money or so much this or so much that, So I am very quiet about where I come from. Somebody told me, I've had 3 people tell me they thought I was from South Africa. And I was like, oh, just what they look like in Cape Town and Johannesburg, I'll take it, So anyway, I say all that, just to say, to be mindful of what we might be taking for granted, because we may be taking a lot of a person's time. And what I started the whole call with is, a lot of times we're competing for time, and time is always going to win. In that case, we took this person's time for cleaning our rooms or servicing us or doing a tour, and then we actually gave them nothing back. And it's not necessarily our responsibility to understand that they don't get paid anything, or maybe they only get $2 out of our $50 ticket. We don't understand that. But getting to know people and actually just taking a little bit of time. You don't have to ask, hey, how much money did you make from this or whatever. We don't have to be like that. But I think you can kind of tell sometimes when it's necessary. And again, when you have good service, you've received good service, then reward that good service. So I'm going to end my live on that, because I've been talking forever. But hopefully you guys got something good from this. My closing notes from last time is I'm normalizing my new normal. That's going to be my one of my new hashtags. And think like a millionaire instead of a Spendanaire. And I say that because this is a time where we really need to be thinking about the wisest ways to spend our money. If you got it like that and you just balling and it don't matter where your money go, holla at your girl, because I don't want money for free, but I will do some services. I have some business things that I can provide. If you just rolling like that, or you want to just support my travel and my wellness and things like that I'm embarking on as I'm on this journey, please let me know if you balling like that, because yes, I do take tips. I do take tips. So you guys stay tuned, because we'll talk about visas, I think, next time. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, a number of you guys have asked, how do you fund your trips? How do you create a living outside of the U.S.? And I am learning as I go. I am trying to do this as I'm going. And as I've opened up that conversation, that'll be another episode, but as I'm opening up this conversation, what I have found is that other people are excited about giving me ideas and ways to do this. And so I say, find the right community. In everything that we do, we really need to find the people that fit our future rather than our past. So as we're going, we can learn so much from people who are moving in the direction that we're moving, or are already been in that direction, or already been where we're going. Not to say that you do everything that someone has already done, but typically someone can give you, just like I've given you some tips, you guys don't have to do anything that I suggested, but now you have the information, you have the tools to make the decisions that you need to make. And that's all information is. Information isn't, oh, I'm going to beat you down the throat and you have to do this. No, information is just that. It is for you to be informed so you can make an informed decision, right? So that's why I'm here, you guys. And so I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully, again, this was beneficial. If y'all have any other questions or any other travel questions, please feel free to type them in the comments below. I'll actually add some of the links from the last episode on here. And I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. If not, I'll come back later. Because right now I just want to get my dance on. And I'm going to finish my Kilimanjaro Tanzanian beer. That is from right here in Tanzania, you guys. Yeah, pretty decent beer. I think they have like 3 different ones here. So anyway, until next time, I think maybe tomorrow I might go live and talk about compromise, relationships and personal relationships and business relationships. So let me know if y'all want to join that conversation. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Y'all know the drill. Toodles and noodles. Peace and hair grease.